We got a very special guest that I'm excited to introduce here. We met at the Salt Lake Comic Con this year. We had booths next to each other, and it was just a real pleasure to spend the weekend with him. His name is Todd Gallowglas. He is a professional storyteller, like on a stage with a show in front of real people, and the best-selling author of the Tears of Rage and Halloween Jack series. As a child, Todd wished he could be a left-handed redhead because he thought they were the most special and different people in the world. Because he was a brown-haired righty, life had forced him to create his own path to being special and different by making up stories of fantastical worlds of adventure. He even believed in these worlds so completely that several of his teachers questioned whether he knew the difference between fantasy and reality. The jury is still out. He currently lives with his wife, 3 children, more pets than they need, and enough imaginary friends to provide playmates for several crowded kindergarten classes. He is currently corrupting his children by raising them with a rich education of geek culture, and still, as busy as he is, he manages to squeeze in time for some old-school tabletop gaming and airsoft battles on the weekends, because it's not as messy as paintball. Please welcome Todd. Todd, how are you doing today?
I'm good. That is the first time I've ever had my bio read, like in my presence out loud, so I'm like kind of chuckling at it.
It's a very fun bio. Like if we had the time, I would have read the entire thing.
I was entertained and also a little tired. That's a busy household.
We just added an Australian Shepherd puppy. So that's it is a cute little fuzzball, but that means that in order for it to keep my wife, who gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to her job, in order for her to get a decent night's sleep, about 11:30 midnight, I take it for a walk around the block a couple of times to make sure that it is exhausted so that it sleeps through the night. So one more bit of chaos.
Yeah, having those puppies, I mean, it really is just like having a newborn child. Like, it's just always to their beck and call. My kids the other day were talking about how they took care of the puppies. Like, I don't ever remember you up at those hours taking it out to make sure it's going to the bathroom.
The one thing I like about the puppy, opposed to my daughter when she was a newborn, if I get tired of the puppy, I can just put it in the backyard and let it fend for itself. CPS didn't approve of me doing that.
It's frowned upon.
Yeah. Well, Todd, how did you get into the writing game?
So I vividly remember the first story I vividly remember writing was in the 3rd grade. It was a Halloween creative writing assignment where we had to go and there was a haunted house down the street, and we had to go into the haunted house. And when I went into the haunted house, I found vampires and ghosts and zombies, and so I ran back to my house and I pulled the special lever in my closet to my secret base underneath my house, and I grabbed my laser blaster and my lightsaber, and I went and saved the neighborhood. And where most of the other kids in the class wrote like 2 paragraphs if they were lucky, I was working on my 3rd page by the time they said, no, just turn it in. And I was like, ooh, I can do this. I can have all these adventures. And so then I was hooked. In 4th grade, I wrote my first fan fiction, because back then the 2 fantasy books that were out there were The Chronicles of Narnia and The Lord of the Rings, and I felt Sam Gamgee's adventures hadn't finished. And so I wrote his continuing adventures. And then, flash forward a bunch of decades, I don't want to say how many, here I am in the writing game and doing it for a living.
Well, it's very cool, and I can definitely attest to the fans you had coming by your booth through a Comic-Con. You're doing a very good job at it.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. Thank you.
So, well, and I really liked this idea about coming back to here and talking again about critiques and beta readers, because this is a major part of the writing process. And if you step away from it and you're just doing this on your own, you can miss a lot of really good, helpful information. On the other hand, sometimes it's too much. So you're going to help us sort this through and how you do this.
All right. I have a very like minuscule amount of beta readers. Currently I can read, I can count my beta readers on one hand, and I've got specific beta readers that do specific things for me. I've got one that has an anal retentive attention to detail that remembers all the minute details that I forget. And so he catches me on goofs in the canon of my various universes. I have one guy that's really technical and says, that's not physically possible even with the magic that you've set up in your worlds. One of the things that I learned in my time pursuing my bachelor's in creative writing is not all feedback is equal. And it's the writers, the biggest challenge for writers when they're getting feedback from people is sifting through the helpful feedback from the non-helpful feedback, the stuff that's going to help you realize your vision of your manuscript, as opposed to those people who are trying to fix what they think is wrong with your manuscript. And the trouble with the people that are trying to fix what's wrong with your manuscript is those are the ones that in some ways will sound the most reasonable and the most like they know what they're talking about, but they're not actually helping the writer achieve their vision.
Thank you for listening, and come back next week for more. Please visit thebookeditorshow.com for show notes, links to guests, books and extras, and for information on how to be a guest on the show.